Hello, and welcome to this recording about the Aries Ingress. Now, this is a yearly ingress, which means we're looking at the movement of the sun into Aries. Now, this is a brand new year, and this Aries Ingress is always looked at through the lens of a particular country. Now, as I'm from Australia, I'm going to look at the Aries Ingress from the lens of Canberra. This chart reveals the state of the whole country and the people in it, the leadership, foreign affairs, all kinds of matters concerning people and their well-being. So let's take a look at the chart. Now, this chart um, is going to need to be drawn up again in 3 months' time because we can see here we've got a Libra rising. Now, in these charts, when we find a cardinal sign, which is what Libra is, then we need to draw that chart up again in 3 months. So this is only valid for 3 months. But let's take a look at Australia. Okay, so firstly, let's take a look at the state of the people, their health, and their perspective right now. Okay. Now we've got Libra rising. Has been known as that sort of, country connected to mateship, where we look after each other, and there's that sort of social element and that sport element, and there's that real networking thing, which is definitely very Libran. But what is interesting in this particular ingress chart is that the ruler of Libra is in Aries. Now, Aries is very much about me and mine. And so it looks as though there's the inclination to be, more sharing, what people are doing is they're conserving their resources because they're afraid of poverty. We've got Venus in the sixth house, which connects to, difficulties with feeling financially free. It can bring matters connected to health and illness to the forefront, and especially mental health to the forefront in this period because Venus, not only is she in her debility here, she's retrograde. So this is a sign of, feeling like as a collective culture that maybe we worry that we're moving backwards rather than stepping forward into more positive growth opportunities. We can see Venus is conjunct Mercury, and Mercury is the ruler of the 12th house. Now, the 12th house does rule mental illness and depression and isolation and loneliness. And as someone who runs a charity for the homeless, I see that this is one of the biggest problems that we're facing. So I want to just stop sharing and just have a little chat to you about it. So we see Venus and Mercury together, and they're both retrograde. Okay, so what we are being encouraged to do as a nation is to really take a long, hard look at ourselves and how we've got to this place. Okay, how have we let ourselves down? What have we done in terms of our habits and our daily routines, individually and collectively, that have led us to this place where we have almost abandoned ourselves? Okay, now this is especially affecting young people. I read a research paper that was written by Beyond Blue, and they were discussing the impact of mental health and depression on young people, especially Gen Z. Now, those are people who were born, I think it's from 1991, no, 1990, I'm not sure exactly the 1990, but 1990 through to 2012. So they're like the young ones. So these people, over a third of Australians in this age bracket are reporting to have below average mental health. And the main reason that people are expressing this concern is due to the cost of living crisis. Now, this is what I've said to you. We've got all these planets in the sixth house, which is the house that is connected to marginalization and not having enough. Okay, so there is a need for people here to, I guess, budget and to get their priorities right. Now, it's very hard to get your priorities right, your mental health right, if you are feeling terrible about yourself. So this is where we can hopefully start to support each other as community. We can come together and start to get our routines better. Now, I want to share the chart again and just, yeah, okay. Now, the other thing that I think is super important to discuss when we're talking about health matters connected to Australia and the Australian people is that we see the ruler of the sixth house, which is the house of illness and health. Jupiter in the eighth house. Now, the eighth house is the house that is connected to mortality, but it's also connected to chronic illness. Now, there could be a rise in chronic illness due to dysregulation of the nervous system and mental health. Okay, dysregulation of the nervous system because the ruler of the illness house is Jupiter in Gemini. Okay, we are too caught up in, I'm going to show you something here. We're too caught up in media and social media, and we're too overstimulated. Jupiter rules the third house here. This is media. This is all of that stuff flashing in your face, okay? And this planet also rules the illness that we're facing. We're facing addiction to social media and just too much stimulation. We can also see a fixed star quite close to the cusp here. And now 27, it's actually at 26 Taurus, but this is the fixed star Algol, which is connected to losing touch with your own sense of balance. Okay, it is the mind taking over and taking us into all the different rabbit holes, and it is not a lucky fixed star. Okay, so collectively, it's like there's a collective madness going on where we are disconnected from our body. Okay, the head is just running the show. Now, we also see Uranus. Uranus is the planet which is connected to disruption, but it's also connected to technology and AI. Now, when we see this on the eighth house, this also talks about, these factors affecting us chronically. Now, the other thing that the eighth house talks about is financial investments of other countries. So we could be investing our money into other countries. They could be investing into us, into areas of technology and AI. Now, I'm sure that that is what's happening because it's such a growing area. Now, the other thing that we can see when we're looking at money, because money and the cost of living crisis is one of the core features of this chart, as we can see. When we look at money of the nation, we actually look at the second house. Let me share that with you. This is the money of the nation here. And we've got Mars on the cusp. Okay. So this is a Scorpio cusp. So there's very emotional feelings connected to the money of the nation. Very late degree Scorpio. This is in the bounds of our malefic planets. You know, the money of the nation is not feeling good. It's not feeling comfortable. And its ruler is Mars in Cancer. Okay, so this is describing that the money of the nation is going to the government, and the government is likely to be spending that money on war or buying weapons. Okay, Mars is a sign of, military. Okay, so this could be funding, or the money is likely to be funding the military budget. Now, we can also see the focus of the people in this chart described by the moon. The moon is descriptor of the people, especially women as well, because it describes women and nurturers. They're equally concerned about money. So this is really just reiterating what I was saying before about concerns around poverty, debility, and money. Now, hopefully that something positive that will come from this is that we'll see more entrepreneurs, people starting off their own businesses, people having the courage to follow their own dreams. Okay, the moon is in a Jupiterian sign. Now, the moon is also the ruler of our leadership too, because it rules the 10th house, and the leadership is, again, in the money house. So it's all about dollars this year, or at least in the first 3 months of this year, in terms of the government and in terms of concerns of the people. Now, we can see that the motivations of the government in terms of resources sit across or opposite from the health of the people. Now, this is not really great. This is not saying, that they're really on board to invest in health and improving, the diets and nutrition of people around Australia. Now, the thing that I'm concerned about too is the situation of our land. Now, when we look at the land and we look at the crops that grow on the land, we look at the fourth house cusp. Okay, and we can see here that this is a Capricorn cusp and Saturn rules it. Now, Saturn is in Pisces, and we've already seen flooding in lead up to this Aries ingress in the Northern Rivers and up in Queensland. And this looks like there is a lack of certainty around the quality of crops, and the integrity of the land that we live on. Now we can see that it's not too far from the nodal axis either, and the nodal axis is conjunct with Neptune. And this is also in the sixth house. So this also, to me, brings up concerns around toxicity, people relying on drugs and alcohol, escapism, because they are not feeling good. So the other thing that's interesting is when we're looking at some of the broad matters that are coming up in this period, we can look at the ruler of the first house, and we end up with Venus in Aries. Now, what is interesting is we've seen an increase in public rallies that are speaking out against femicide and deaths connected to violence against women and children. So this is very symbolic, especially because Venus is conjunct Mercury, which is speaking out in a Mars-ruled sign. Mars can be a descriptor of violence. So this is actually coming out. Now, the thing that we should remember, though a lot of these indications are quite challenging and not very positive, often when we lean into some of these more difficult subjects and people like, so for example, in these rallies where we bring these matters to the surface, okay, because the ruler of Venus and Mercury is Mars up in the 10th house. So what is likely to happen is, even though we have to discuss these horrible, horrible things that have happened to people, and like, they are coming out of the sixth house. They're not being buried. They're not being hidden. And this is how things get brought to the surface. And this is how things change, okay, in the bigger picture of everything, okay? So we need to have faith. We need to have faith that while there is a focus on the sixth house, what we can do is that we can work on ourselves, we can work on our own communities, people that we know and love, people that we might be able to influence or benefit. Say you drive past someone every day who might be homeless, maybe you can go and get them a little bit of food. If you are involved with a community group, maybe you can do a little fundraiser, or you can do a little, activity to boost up morale, because that is what is needed in this period, okay? Improvements in mental health, making sure people are eating right, or at least, I guess, maybe getting into the right mental space, because you can't tell someone to eat right when they don't feel right. So the ultimate thing is, looking out for people who've been forgotten, people who are isolated. If you've got someone elderly on your street that hasn't seen someone for a while, why not go and bring them some flowers? It's just little things that if everyone was to do some little things, we could really get a lot of benefit out of this sixth house. We can actually start to look into that house and into all the rich knowledge that comes from being marginalized and being, and suffering, really. Okay, so let's do our best to support ourselves and our suffering, and to start to find little snippets of light in that. And also to help other people in very practical ways. Yeah, I hope that lands with you. Please tell me how you have interpreted this ingress chart, if you have experience in ingress charts, how you feel about the way Australia is going at the moment. We really need to band together. Remember that we, are based on a foundation of mateship and looking out for each other. As a small country so far away from everyone else, like, we really need to stick together and really support those people who need it in the community. So if you've got a little bit of strength, a little bit of spark, then be willing to share that, and you'll be surprised how much benefit can come to the world. All right. Thank you.